My wife, 26 female, and I, 31 male, were married for 3 years when this story took place. We lived in a nice neighborhood that was almost too quiet. We hadn't even considered having children at this point, but in the back of my mind, I decided the neighborhood was safe enough for children to ride bikes or roam around freely. My wife and I often went jogging early in the morning, and I remember the first time we saw a young man that lived 3 houses away from us. He was sitting on the front porch and looked pretty young for a homeowner. I assumed it was his first house, or that he lived with his parents. I waved to him like a friendly neighbor. He casually waved back, but his eyes were locked on my wife. He smiled and raised his eyebrows before turning away. I was annoyed, but we were wearing headphones and my wife didn't seem to notice she was being checked out. I let it go, but I didn't plan on inviting that guy to any barbecues. Later, I came home from work, parked in the driveway, and saw the very same guy walking across my front yard. I called him out and asked what he was doing. I could tell he was trying to decide whether he should turn around or not. He did, and awkwardly said he didn't mean to trespass. He was just introducing himself to my wife, because we'd never been properly introduced. We exchanged names, and I was polite, even though I wanted him to feel like I was a little uneasy about him being there while I was at work. After I knew he was gone, I went inside to find my wife. She was setting the table for dinner, but she seemed kind of embarrassed. She just asked me if I was okay. I said yeah, confused, and asked her why. She said she just wanted to check, because I was talking to the neighbor on our lawn. I asked her if he knocked on the door to introduce himself, and she responded saying yes, and suggesting we invite him over for dinner or a cookout since he lives alone. I was surprised she called him by his name, already knew he lived alone, and wanted me to invite him to our house. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind. Since I felt a little weird and knew his name, I decided to search for his online profile. It wasn't hard to find, and neither was his linked Instagram account. I scrolled through, and to my horror, found a picture of him kissing my wife. It was a recent upload, as if they were hanging out while I was at work. I couldn't believe it. There was no caption, but a lot of people commented asking who the woman was. He wouldn't tell them. My wife was cheating on me with our neighbor. She was kissing him. How long had they known each other? I felt devastated. I took vows with this woman. My parents paid for our wedding. I needed to know why she was doing this, and if there was anything I could have done to prevent it. However, saner thoughts prevailed. I simply took a screenshot and decided not to confront my wife until her birthday party. I created a spy Instagram account to follow AP. I hoped for more proof before exposing her in front of all her friends and family. This was the worst time in my life. I couldn't touch my wife. I couldn't tell her I knew about the affair, and I couldn't attack AP like I wanted to. I felt really alone and distraught. I tried to think about the future and how great it would be to fall in love again. But it was too soon, and I had too much healing to do. So I was just stuck in this kind of purgatory for a while. I was shocked my wife didn't even notice or ask me what was wrong. I planned to ruin the party by presenting her wrapped presents and divorce papers. The presents were going to be framed poster-sized prints of her and AP's Instagram photos. I hoped for more proof, but when I saw it, I was infuriated. I was at work when he uploaded another selfie with her, then another the next day when they were at the creek. Then the day before her birthday party, he uploaded a picture of her standing in his bedroom, wearing one of his oversized t-shirts, pulling up her panties. The caption read, "Ira the Forbidden, peach is always the tastiest." Even though I had to bundle up my jacket and scream into it to keep myself from imploding, this was the proof I'd been waiting for. With this evidence, she wouldn't get anything in the divorce, and I could start my life over. I was thankful, betrayed, and heartbroken all at the same time. Now I knew she had sex with him. I wondered if it was the first time. I wondered how she was going to act around me. On the way home, I stopped at a print shop to have 6 poster-sized photos and divorce papers printed. It was cheaper than I expected, so I'm pretty sure they gave me the divorce discount. When I got home, she was almost normal, except I noticed she didn't want to look at me too long, like she feared I'd see through her facade. She got up the nerve to casually ask me if AP could come to her birthday party. Inside, I was screaming. I couldn't believe she could ask me that after having sex with him. She must have believed she was innocent until proven guilty, and I didn't give her any clues that she was on trial. I even surprised myself when I told her AP could come to her party. I just plastered on a fake smile and said, "The more the merrier." As she slept, I framed and wrapped the giant pictures. I also put X-lax in the cupcakes I baked for the party. At the party, AP stood towards the back of the room. It was awkward. Her family and friends didn't know why he was there, so they tried to create chit-chat, but he couldn't tell them the truth, obviously, so it became awkward really fast. Everyone had cupcakes first. Then I insisted my wife open the divorce papers. When she saw what it was, she looked at me like her soul jumped out of her body. Then she looked at AP with her mouth hanging open. Her mom immediately asked what was wrong. I didn't let her respond or answer her questioning stare. I just handed her the next present. She opened it slowly, and when she saw it was a picture of her pulling up her panties, she fainted. Her guests let out a couple screams, and two of her friends came to her side. I unwrapped the rest of the photo and turned it around for everyone to see. They gasped. I said my wife was cheating on me with AP. They all looked at him. While I opened the other wrapped posters, AP took off. Then my wife woke up and realized what was happening. She just whined and cried while her guests wondered what to do. Her best friend was so shocked and asked her if it was true and what was going on. After AP left, my wife tried to follow him, but he didn't stop for her in the parking lot. She was so embarrassed she couldn't face her mother or friends. She just started walking home and refused any rides from anyone. I drove beside her to talk, but she only blamed me for everything. Days later, she was at her mom's when she said it was my fault AP was ghosting her. I told her she had a lot of nerve to tell me that. She was the cheater. I didn't care what she felt. Even if she wanted to apologize, it wouldn't mean anything to me. I told her I left the divorce papers on her mother's porch, and she cussed me out before I hung up. She was supposed to be my wife for life. If she didn't want to be that anymore, she should have had a serious conversation with me. No matter how hard it was, if she was that miserable or ready to split, I at least deserved an honest conversation. And if there was no issue in our marriage, then I didn't deserve her inconsideration. She only thought of herself and what she felt like doing. She's still living with her embarrassed and controlling mother. She doesn't have any friends or lovers. I'm so sorry your wife was selfish enough to start seeing and sleeping with the neighbor. To me, it sounds like she was insecure and wanted his love and attention in addition to yours. It made her feel good, and that's all she cared about. As you said, it seemed like she was confident because she didn't think you'd ever find out. It's lucky you caught him in the yard that day and found him online. You got the proof you needed to divorce her and retain your house. Not only that, but thanks to the internet, you got the perfect birthday presents for her too. She'll probably never be as surprised as she was in that moment, and she deserved that life-ending experience. You're a fine example on how to handle this traumatic, harsh reality. Thank you for sharing with us. Now let's get into our second story for today. I met my wife while we were attending a terrible high school. We lived in a dodgy area and came from poor families. We got to know each other in school, out of school, and a few years later while we worked full-time at the same company. Only her father and my mother were still alive. But we each had several aunts and uncles, brothers, sisters, and cousins. We all lived around the same area and depended on each other. When my wife, girlfriend at the time, fell pregnant with my child, I was comforted by the fact that we lived close to loved ones. We had a community of family to love our child and help us raise them right. Even before the baby was born, my wife and I had a growing savings fund. When she told her family about our savings account, she expected them to be proud, but instead they started asking for help paying their bills. Then my side of the family caught wind, including my mother, and she reached out to me to casually talk about her gas bill. I was infuriated. My woman and I had finally gotten a chance to make some money for our future, and now people we loved were trying to take it away. We cared about our family immensely, but one look at where they were in life showed you the level of ambition they had. They wasted money on Amazon and streaming services, junk things they never used. I didn't spend like that, but I did notice my wife's poor financing skills. We continued saving and denying our family's requests for money. I took out a credit card and started building credit the right way. I didn't tell my wife I had a credit card, since she was nearly due to have our first child, and our family kept pressuring us for money. We decided to elope. We had a little getaway that we considered a honeymoon. And it was then that I asked her if she was ready to get her own place. We were staying with my cousin and his roommate at the time. At first she was excited and said she wanted to move, but then she looked nervous. She asked how far we'd be from family. The conversation was disappointing. As much as she wanted us to move out, she wanted to be close to her family more. The closest I wanted to be was 30 minutes from them, because I knew they'd keep asking us for handouts even after we had a newborn. She told me she wanted to stay with my cousin, because he only asked us for $150 in rent. That would allow us to continue saving money. I let her have her way, but in my head I figured we would move out the next year. It didn't turn out that way. 12 years later, we were still living with him. We moved out for 1 year, but then my wife wanted to move back. He was basically part of our family and acted like a brother to all of us. As of D-Day, my wife and I had a 13 and 11-year-old son and daughter. I was at work on the day my wife had off. I came home to find them laying naked in my bed. I was extremely caught off guard. I yelled at them, which made them jump up and start getting dressed. I was furious when I asked them what they were doing. My wife just said no a couple of times, and once she was dressed, sat on the bed and covered her face. My cousin just started apologizing. He was caught with my wife, but all he could say was that he was sorry. I asked him if he had sex with her, but he only said he was sorry and wouldn't do that. He snuck out of the room behind me while I questioned my wife. I asked her the same questions, but she didn't want to answer, so I screamed and grabbed her wrist, ordering her to tell me the truth. It was the least she could do for the father of her children. She burst into tears and said yes, they did it, and she was really sorry. I tuned her out while she begged for my forgiveness. Before I left, I asked if this was the first time they ever slept together. My wife was caught off guard by my question and just started crying again. She wouldn't answer me. I figured this was going on for a while. To prevent myself from getting into a fight with AP, I went to pick up my kids from school. I took them to a hotel with me. Over the course of a week, I bought a nice house. Halfway through the week, my wife picked up the kids because she thought she had more rights to them than I did. I knew custody was going to be a huge fight with her, but I had savings to work with after all these years of preparation. I never planned to have my wife stay in another man's house for so long. Yes, he was my cousin, but apparently that didn't matter or help anything at all. My wife, on the other hand, never kept her savings. Even though our bills were paid, she never kept money from her checks. I was just relieved she kept working, paying her portion of bills, and didn't try asking me for money. While we were separated and the divorce was in progress, she'd video call me with the kids to tell me that they didn't want me to leave them or mommy. They were old enough to know the truth, but their mom was lying to them and trying to get them to convince me to keep things the way they were. Then she whispered to me that if I went through with this divorce, I would never see them again. She didn't know I had my own house now, so I went home to my cousin's and pretended I was willing to forgive her if she earned back my trust. I told my cousin we weren't on speaking terms, and if he ever touched my wife again, he'd regret it. My acting paid off because I was able to talk to my kids alone while my wife and cousin were out of the house. I told them the truth about what happened with their mom, and that for that reason, I needed to go for a while to handle adult stuff that would help me get to see them again. I warned them that their mother might try to lie and make them mad at me, but they needed to do their best to tell everyone the truth. I said they should have a relationship with both their mom and I. They shouldn't be made to feel like one of us is right and the other is wrong, because nothing is ever that black and white. With that, I returned to my new home when my soon-to-be ex returned to the house. She was really upset that I didn't want to stay with them. She called me later, furious after the kids told her they thought she was wrong for cheating on me. At the court hearing, the kids were old enough to be given the choice of who to live with primarily, and they chose me in the new house. I was so excited. It was what I had planned for them for so many years. They couldn't have a better opportunity in life with me as their example. They still got to see their mom every other weekend, and that was plenty. They started to tell me why they loved me and being at home more than with her. It was a great victory for me. My kids weren't turned against me after all, and I try not to think about those unfair and scary months when I wasn't sure what was going to happen. It was only 4 months before the kids told the court they didn't want visits with their mother anymore because she would drink in front of them and talk badly about me. I don't wish this experience on anyone, but if it happens, try to keep future goals in mind to stay ahead of your ex. Don't get caught up in the frustration. Try to focus on positive changes. My ex's life became as miserable as possible. She hit rock bottom and continues suffering the consequences for cheating on me with my cousin, the man we lived with for years. Our children are adults now, and they don't have any contact with their mother or AP. She didn't get to experience the life I wanted for us, and that's the saddest part of all. OP, I am so sorry your wife slept with your cousin. While you worked and your children were at school, she cheated on you with your own family member. Someone you trusted betrayed you with another person you trusted. No one should have to go through this. Not one person is better than another, and any problems in a relationship should be worked through. Everybody has at least one fault or burden that they carry. A little humility and understanding goes a long way for keeping two people together. It's a healthier environment for children, and compromising shows them how relationships are maintained and nurtured. Marriage and faithful relationships don't just happen. They demand work, dedication, wisdom, and humility. You are an excellent example to those in similar situations. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your